Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
What's new?
Hmm. Nothing. Tell me something interesting.
You're
No
asking
pressure.
you're asking me this? Do you know who
Your
you're
last
talking?
effort.
So, I had reason to recall recently um, something that I experienced back in the 80s. I went
Ooh, we're getting in the Wayback Machine. Okay.
way the
I will
back.
put my velour jumpsuit on.
Oh
No,
my.
no, I won't. That's a bad idea. Sorry. Sorry, y'all had to picture that. Okay, go ahead.
What about your parachute pants?
I skipped that one.
Did you?
Not good for the thick thighs. Yeah. Mm-mm.
So more of a deployed parachute pant.
Oh, well, let's be fair. I was, 10 in the 80s,
Okay.
all of the 80s. Sounds like maybe, okay, so what were you doing? You were like a grown up and shit, huh?
Yeah, I was like all grown up and kids and married and
Oh,
house
wow.
and
Okay.
shit. I was pr-
Oof.
trying to figure out how to do this grown up stuff. And
Okay. All right.
so I went to this, I had heard about from various sources about this week long self help seminar that was all the rage at the time. Um, and
Was it Amway?
it was not.
Oh, that's what my parents were doing. Okay.
Um, yeah.
How funny if you had seen my parents at an Amway meeting. Okay, but you weren't there, so go ahead.
I went to more than one job, quote unquote, job interview that ended up being
Oh.
Amway. Um,
They were so insidious. Okay.
anyway, so this was this. There was a lot of, well, not a lot of woo woo stuff. It was
Yeah.
fairly practical stuff, but
Okay.
there was a bit of a cult following concept, and which I was really not into. But
No, you
but there,
had plenty of experience with that.
but there were some valuable things that I did learn from that. And one
Yeah.
of which is how we get the concept backwards. And the way people think is, if I have this thing, then I will be able to do that thing, and then I will be able to be what I want,
Okay, yeah, sure. If I have $1 million,
right?
then I'll be able to buy all the things I want or have the house and the status symbols, and then I will be fulfilled and happy.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure. Okay,
That
that's
that's
what we
that,
do.
that's what we do, which
Hmm.
is completely backwards from what actually works.
Oops.
I mean, that's how we think, and guess how often that actually turns out? Yeah, not so often.
So I've only been attempting it for 41 years. Give me a chance.
All right. Still working
Still
on
needs more study.
still perfecting.
Yeah, okay. So what's the right way?
Be if I am the way I want to be, then I can do the things that I want. No, yes,
Yeah.
then I can have my, you know,
Whatever your goal is.
whatever your goal is.
Okay. So if I apply myself, if I'm very disciplined and diligent, then I will become a better writer, and then I will have the successful career that I'm after.
Right. Or if I am the kind of person that I want to be, then I will do the things
No, yes.
that will attract people like me instead of all those other people that I have been attracting.
All those other people have been doing it backwards with me.
Yeah, and then I can have an ideal partner.
Oh, Okay. Yeah, I can see that. But I want to take it back though. I don't want to go into love, icky love stuff yet.
Okay.
I I just want to talk about this in the sense because that's you want me to be the right person. Okay, no, no, no. Let's just focus smaller on just like everything else in our lives. The stuff that we have to do outside of having another person.
Okay.
That stuff that's just us. It's just our path.
Okay.
So if I rather than setting the goal of um, even having $1 million or whatever, like take that out of it,
Mm.
just because who knows what the actual outcome will be if I do it in the right order. It will be about if I am the person I want to be, if I behave in the ways that I think are um, valuable. If I am self-disciplined, because as an independent writer, I have to be self-disciplined and forward-thinking and flexible. If I am all those things,
Hmm.
then I can. What is it? It's if I be, then I do. Then I become a successful writer. I am able to grow the following that I need, and then as a result of that, I will sell books. Really, I guess would be the result I'm looking at.
Well, I would say, let me restate that and say that are if you develop those internal qualities that you described,
Hmm.
then you will be able to do the do part of that would be you'll be able to write more and better books,
Okay, yeah,
right?
it helps to articulate really the steps. So, okay, yes, so then I
Yeah,
will be able to write better books more quickly, more
yeah.
effectively, and market them.
And then you will have, um, well, see, that's the thing is you don't know what you'll have out of that,
I don't
right?
know what I'll have. It's the outcome, which is good though because we talked already about how getting attached to outcomes is sort of the root of all pain.
Suffering,
So
yeah.
yeah, so how do we? Yes, because those are different. Pain and suffering are different. But so how do we even articulate a goal?
Maybe,
Like
well, yeah, that's an excellent question because
how
everything,
do we articulate a goal for us to not get attached to?
right? And the everything you read out there, almost like 99.98% talks about goal, really getting attached to your outcome for your
Right,
goal.
even to the point of like the stuff like The Secret, the law of attraction, like manifesting,
Right.
focusing on what you want, the positive thinking, like, and that will bring it forth, but that really leaves out everything that leads up to that, which is the doing, the being, and the doing. So yeah, so how do we?
Well, part of it is that I've learned through learning about letting go. Letting go is a counterintuitive way to manifest and to achieve goals, and that by letting go of wanting, you actually allow something to come into your life.
Right, and I get that because there was a whole in the whole process of unschooling and um, changing our parenting. There was a movement from a thought pattern of lack
Right.
to a thought pattern of abundance. So instead of thinking of what we didn't have and what was standing in our way and what we wanted but could not access,
Hmm.
to shift instead to what do we have a great deal of, and how can we like reshape and create a culture of abundance even though the situation has not changed. So okay, so all right, so I'm familiar with the taking away the wanting, that feeling of lack.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
here's what I'm thinking is that you don't even think about the have part. You just focus on the being and the doing, and the having will just happen. And if you're not attached to any particular having outcome, then you'll be happy with however it turns out.
Okay. Now, in theory, and I apologize for the helicopter. I mean, I'm not flying it or anything, but it's loud. Okay. Um, so so theoretically, I totally agree with this, and in that I mean that it sounds really good, um, but it's so hard to do in practice.
Well,
Um,
sure, we are very ingrained to get attached to goal outcomes. So,
and well, and even more so, like it requires to me a certain degree of self delusion, because if I'm being honest, really deeply honest, and I'm gonna now I have to go into the icky love stuff. I want a relationship. I want a partnership,
hmm
a romantic partnership. But I also acknowledge that in order to have the partnership I want, I have to just let it be, not be my focus for
right,
a while and focus on, yes, being the person I want to be because, like you said, that will attract the people that I want to have around me and from whom I am more likely to be able to select that partner. But I cannot lie to myself and say, I don't care. No big deal. I'm 41 and I'm divorced, and if I just don't ever have a romantic lifetime partner that I really feel truly safe with and 100% comfortable that I'm can be completely myself and completely vulnerable, that's okay. That's fine. It's not fine. It's not okay with me. I want that. I do. But I am coming to a space where I understand that the desperate wanting, laying in bed at night and crying over what I don't have,
hmm
A, doesn't feel good, and B, doesn't get me any closer to being the kind of person I want to be who can be strong and capable and feel whole on their own.
well, and you realize that as you were saying, the more you feel that lack, the the less likely you can manifest it.
Well, yes, because what I'm going to manifest if I'm stuck in that lack is just
Yeah,
anybody that I can latch onto.
right.
And, that's not what I want, and it would take me away from my ultimate goal. I said the G word, to which I am somewhat attached of having a lifetime partner because I would end up back in my, old pattern of just please don't leave me. Just stay. Just give me whatever love you've got and don't leave.
Right.
Don't take it away. And that doesn't do me any good. So, I mean, part of my particular journey is knowing that because the worst thing in the world is to have love taken away, that I have to give it away and just say, no, thanks. I'm like, unless it's good love that is, something that is mutual and mutually beneficial and enriching, to say, no, thanks. I'm good. And that's difficult, but also, like if you know your goal, what your goal is, if you have in mind the kind of person you want to be, which is not a person who clings to
Right.
any old love,
Right.
then the choice is easy. But it is hard to have faith that walking this path is going to lead to, that is really going to lead to me having what I want to have at the end. And I don't know, maybe that's harder with, I think it is harder with romance. I'm more willing to accept that the writer path may not lead exactly where I want, that could change, or, like that any number of other things in my life might not get where I'm thinking I want to go. But that is one that I do have difficulty in releasing the attachment to.
Well, yeah, but what you want to do. So what here's how you let go of attachments. And that's the best there's the best way that I've found is through reframing. And so let me use an example from dating. And one of the ways that uh, nice guys um, go about dating and you can
Okay.
tell me how this works for women um,
Okay.
who have dating attachments. So when a quote unquote nice guy who's not a nice person um, has even a first date, in many cases they will be completely attached to um, a particular outcome, which is, we're going to have a great date. She's going to find me fascinating. We're going to kiss. We're going to date forever. We're going to be together forever. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they build this whole scenario up in their head, and they get super emotionally attached to it.
Yeah. She's my unicorn.
Yeah, this person that you've never met.
Right. Or maybe
uh,
had some good conversations with online. But
yeah, but then the actual date happens, and it doesn't have to even be a horrible date. It's just,
right.
she's just like, meh, no thanks,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and it's
Or
devastating.
no thanks for a kiss. Maybe we could do this again, but yeah, I'll call you.
Yeah, right. And then the guy gets really wrecked over this because it's not how he saw it happening. And I've heard stories of guys getting literally angry at the
Oh yeah.
women for them spoiling the,
Yeah.
the story in their head.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
um, when the if you think about what the point of dating is, the point of dating is to gather information.
Yeah.
And one of the key bits of information is, do you want to go move forward, and does she want to move forward? Okay,
Which,
so
yeah.
that's the point of a date, is to decide, do you want to move forward, and find out if she wants to move forward.
Yeah.
That it's So there's no outcome. It's just
Right.
information gathering. So you can
Yeah.
go in and you can find out. And if she is not wanting to go forward, you want to find that out sooner rather than later. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I
So
don't
so
know that
that's a
that's
ref so that anyway, so that's a reframe rather
well,
than
yeah, but
go ahead.
I also don't know that that's necessarily true. I think there are a lot of people who would rather not know.
No, well,
They would rather just continue to live in the fantasy and not be rejected.
true. I'm just talking about what is if you want to go
Okay.
through dating and not be
Yeah.
crushed every time,
Yeah, sure. Then yes, you do. You have to reframe it as
you
just an
reframe
information
it
gathering.
you reframe it as information gathering, and
Yeah.
fi- and getting to know and as soon as possible for either one of you.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is, when that point comes, is one of you says, I'm not interested in moving forward anymore.
Yeah.
Done.
And so
And
this
then
is
and then
okay.
boom, you're out and moving on.
And so I'm understanding more because this topic has come up a couple of times. I'm understanding more what you're saying about being frustrated when women would say no, but that your perception was that they weren't saying no because they didn't find you to be pleasant. Rather, they were saying no simply because you didn't meet the ideal they had set up in their heads,
Right. Or
that
it's
you weren't their outcome.
yeah. And
Yes.
and especially, they have, whatever criteria they have uh, for their ideal, um, are those always immediately knowable?
No,
Are
I
those
don't think
always
so.
immediately visible? I don't
It's
think so.
certainly not. And I think even beyond that, I think sometimes the lists we make are
Yeah.
not realistic anyway. So
Oh,
like
yeah,
what
yeah.
we think we want might not be exactly what we want. And if we take the time to explore this person, we would find that their version of that thing is actually better than the one we had in our heads.
Exactly. And one of the ways I tried to explain it to a couple of women was, I don't even know what all the options are yet.
Right.
How
So,
do
okay, so I'm gonna.
go ahead.
I was gonna tell you something that's kind of it's a little personal, but I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you anyway. I have started exploring a few hours from me. There is I don't want to call it a sex club because it's not that. It is a community learning center that is a sex positive place,
Yeah.
and um, it's set up for people who want to play, in particular, a lot of like BDSM stuff.
Okay.
So there's a lot of equipment and props and things like that.
Hmm.
And like even though I am nowhere ready, close to being ready to explore this with anybody, because I explored it with my husband, and that was not something that we were compatible on.
Ah.
And then it was something that I was compatible with the gentleman who I was in love with who died, but we never got a chance to explore it together. And so now I'm in a position of being like, well, I know I want to do some of this stuff, but I don't have anybody to do it with. And so I'm going and I'm exploring this community where I can see what other people do and see, well, does that look good and interesting to me? Or is that something that makes me go, oh, no, 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 no. I will break both your arms. Don't even try.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that we have to understand going into relationships that like you said, we don't even know what's out there. We don't even know everything that's on the menu and the wonderful and complex ways that people could be put together that at first glance we think, and then as we delve deeper, we find out that, it really is everything that not everything we were looking for, but everything we do need. And so I think it is dangerous to get attached to outcomes, particularly when we were talking about in relation to people.
Right. Totally. Totally. Um, and maybe that's the thing that the women are. So the men are more, I think, getting attached to the long-term scenarios that they build up in their heads and imagining, this fantastic relationship with this beautiful woman and riding off into the sunset and all that shit.
Hmm.
And maybe from the women's side, they're attached to their ideal.
I think for men, it almost the breakdown I see is that men are looking for a behavioral outcome, whereas women are looking for like a character or qualities ideal. Your men have a behavior ideal. The behavior ideal would be that this woman is absolutely fascinated by them and just can't get enough of them, and
Hmm.
is absolutely is down for whatever sexual advances they make, and like
Right.
everything flows along. And for women, I think, yeah, it maybe isn't so much the behavior that is an ideal for us, it's that they will do things that show their character. um which is like that a gentleman will open the door for us, or open, you and I have gone
Right.
round and round about like opening the car door. Because I'm so like, I can open my damn car door. Why should I wait for you? And you're like, it's a man thing, and just let me open the damn car door because it
It's
makes me feel like I'm taking care of you.
and it shows respect, and it shows value, and it shows um, um, thoughtfulness.
Right. And meanwhile, I'm over here going, I'm not so sure because if I have to wait 5 seconds for you to open my door, how is that you being thoughtful of me? Like, that seems like you're expecting me to wait for you. But that's just because I'm a bitch. So, but, but I think for women, it's that there will be, we may not even be attached to what those specific behaviors are so much as we are to the way it makes us feel, and the what it shows about his character. um, Whereas for men, okay, this is, you're going to have to tell me if I'm wrong, because this is a thing that I saw in my relationships, and I'm not sure it's accurate.
I might be able to tell you if you're wrong. I think I'm up
Y-
for that job.
You always are. Um, I think, no, I'm not sure this is accurate. It may just be my relationship, but that
Give it a
in a
whirl.
way, give it a whirl. So, in a way, I feel like sometimes men are interested in how women make them feel about themselves. Like that, it really, when you said that being fascinated with him, that is something I think that men
That was something you said, but okay.
love. Well, I think men use that as a litmus test more so than women do. I don't know if that's because women don't expect men to be fascinated by us, or just me, or what, but that men want a woman to sort of, like we've talked about before, to want to revolve around them and to make them comfortable and to dote on them, whereas women want someone who appreciates them. That, and I guess it's just appreciation in different ways. That men want a behavioral appreciation, and women, yeah, I don't know. It really, I can always see both sides of it. So I don't know.
um,
For me in my relationships, and particularly in my marriage and growing up, it was, the back and forth was about me making them feel good and them appreciating that I made them feel good. But it all rested on me making them feel good. You know what I mean? That cycle. Like, that
oh,
was the thing that was applauded, and that they were thankful for. Not me as a person,
yeah,
but
but
that how I made them feel.
that's entirely possible for a great majority of the men in the world. It's really unhealthy, of course, because
And I think it's the old deal that we've talked about. It's that old reciprocal energy of,
but it's more than that. That's expressing out an emotional lack in the man that he's
hmm,
seeking to be filled by the woman, instead of being, you know, uh, two people who enjoy being together and are going places that sometimes there's overlap and sometimes there's not, and being supportive of each other, and that's a much more better thing than, oh, make me feel good for taking out the garbage.
So it's interesting to me how we get this twisted, because I remember very clearly when I was in college, and particularly when I was in creative writing classes and writing poetry, and of course I was dating my ex-husband, and so he was the source of all of my angst and joy, and poetry. And I remember writing, we had this discussion actually, in real life, and then writing a poem that referenced it, about how we said that we would just love each other until we didn't love each other anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That was okay. That's where we stood, was that, it'll last as long as it lasts. But then at a certain point, it morphed, and it became about, like what I said earlier, about not taking the love away, about it's mine now. You've given
Ah.
it to me. It's mine. This is, we share this together, and don't, that breaking off, the losing of that love would be so incredibly painful that I wasn't willing to go through that. And
Mm-hmm.
it was instead preferable for me to do whatever, like behave in whatever way and become whatever I had to become in order to make him so happy that there was no reason for him to take his love away.
Well,
So
but,
here's
well,
here's my
go ahead, finish.
well here's my question is, why, like, how can we get to a place of knowing, because even if we look at it in terms of a marriage, like, even that's a temporary relationship. One of us, even if we had stayed together, one of us was going to die,
Mm-hmm.
probably not at the same time.
Probably
One
not.
of us was going to have to go on without the other. So it's all temporary. So why did it get fucked up? Why did I go from, oh, we'll just love each other till we don't love each other anymore and it'll end
Till
and that'll
death
be
do you
okay,
part.
until, yeah, and then, well, I mean, but the morph happened before that, to,
But that was,
I
but you
want this
had,
so badly.
but you had that concept in mind that if we
Yes.
if things progress, you know, on your timeline.
Right. If we still love each other, if we haven't stopped loving each other after a few years, then why wouldn't we get married?
Right. And marriage means till death do you part, which
Yeah.
means that's
All
uh
mine.
yeah,
I have a picture of
exclusively.
Donald Duck. Mine, 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 mine.
Scrooge McDuck might be better.
That's true.
Hoarding it all.
Mhm.
um yeah, so that's the framework with which relationships are bound typically in our society, is that the intention is to find someone who whose love you have exclusive rights forever.
But that's so unrealistic. I mean, if we look at every other
Yeah,
relationship in our lives, every other relationship, our friendships, our other romances, our even our blood relationships to some extent, because the people that are born, way before us, our parents and grandparents, they're going to probably die before us. And the people who come way after us are going to live beyond us. Like all of those things are temporary.
yeah,
So what if we know that? If we know that all of our relationships truly are temporary, then how can we allow them to come and go gracefully? Because I think that's what hangs us up. It's like, oh yeah, sure, fine. So, I'm going to have these friendships and they're going to begin and end because we don't expect our friendships to last all our lives.
really.
But well, I was a military kid. I didn't.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
um, but if we allow that to be the case with so many other relationships or our bosses or our coworkers,
yep.
how is it, although those people, are not as important to our hearts and our growth, but how do we allow ourselves to just not get so focused on, I mean, is it because we get focused on the ending and the pain of what's going to end that love, that connection, or is it the outcome to an unrealistic attachment to a forever outcome that is just not a possibility?
It's just not possible, I don't think. Um, you know, uh, uh, if
So what the hell are we avoiding? I mean, it's going to end.
right, but we don't want it to. I mean, it's really tied up in this thing that I can find someone and we will be together until we die. And, the only, well, very a few people that really happens. Uh, some people get, widowed early, and so that
Yeah.
um, but for most of us, things change. We change. Circumstances change. We want different things as time goes on. Part of it through maturity, part of it through um, new experiences, and we realize, oh, wow, this isn't all there is.
Yeah.
And the idea,
So,
but I like your idea that, we're going to love each other as long as we love each other.
yeah.
And go ahead. Do
Oh
you
well,
have
no, I guess so. I'm thinking is it the impermanence? Is that just is does it all come back to us not being comfortable
being
being
alone?
whole people are on our own? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Is
That's a
yeah.
large part of it for sure. Because I remember when I was all more broken,
Sure. Okay.
that, wanting to have somebody who would fill all of those empty places in me and put me
Oh
back
yeah.
together.
Yeah.
I wanted somebody else who could knew what to do, like magically
Right?
you could just reach inside of me and put the pieces back together somehow. Like
Well, that would be
who
so
knows?
much easier than
But who does that? Nobody.
no, and yeah, not in any lasting way. I mean, I think that's all temporary, and
Plus,
everything's temporary.
yeah, but it's dependent on that other person. So when that other
Yeah.
person goes away,
Mhm. or
No,
isn't the ideal or doesn't behave in the way we want them to.
or makes things worse.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. We're still not okay on
Right,
our own. We're,
exactly.
in many cases worse off now because that thing we had it all riding on didn't work out.
But what happens a lot of times, and I know it's happened with me, is that you remember the early on parts when you felt all glowy
Mhm.
and good and whole around this other person, and you want to recreate that
Yeah.
as soon as fucking possible.
Yeah. There's a name for that actually that it came up when we were in couples therapy, my ex and I. Um in the context of like could we get it back, and the name for it is limerence.
Yes.
And that is that feeling, that rush of just, oh my God, I love this person so much and they're so wonderful and it feels so good. I feel so full of them.
Mhm.
And that we chase that.
Yeah,
I
it's a
think,
drug. I mean, literally, it's drugs in our brains.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's serotonin. It's
Well, there's a whole combination, but yes.
no, sure. But so okay, so there's two sides to this. All right. So on the one hand, there are the people who say, well, limerence doesn't last and relationships take work. And if after 20 years the spark is gone, well, then you just have to find a way to, be okay with the relationship as it is. And you can't expect it to be all fire and passion and hot looks all the time. So, just do the work and make it work. And then there's the other side, which is the side I fall on, which is that no, sometimes we made a wrong decision because we were looking for that other person to fill us. And at a certain point, we realized they weren't doing the job because they couldn't, and that it was a job we had to do on our own, and that actually necessitated severing that
Yeah.
relationship.
Yep.
Um, so I feel like, damn it, we really are going to have to save the world in this case, SK, because it it's going to take an entire societal change of us no longer focusing on the princess finding her prince charming. It's going to have to focus on every single person being a king and queen in their own right
Yes.
before they ever look around for who is going to help them rule their kingdom.
Absolutely true. Um, and oh shit, I lost
Oh, God damn, because we really need it now.
it.
We may be the only people who have figured this out. No, I know we're not. But
Well, let me just say that as young people, you're not kings and queens, but if you're good, strongly differentiated prince and princesses, that and then you can grow together into becoming king and queens. Makes
I
sense. But
know.
as long as you're strong, as long as you are an individual, and I don't mean prince and princess in the
Yeah,
Disney sense. I mean
yeah, no.
I mean
I
in
mean, I
the
almost want to say, like knights.
well,
But
that's
yeah, I'm
actually Alison Armstrong in her book called The Amazing Development of Man. She actually uses uh, uh, squires, knights, prince, and king as explaining the development stages of men.
sure. Yeah,
So I'm meaning that in that sense, not in the fairy tale sense.
right. And but I think that that's apt, and I think that that's what women have to adopt as well, is that warrior sort of standalone knighthood
Yeah.
that, that I think we all need to do that.
Yes. Yes. And you know, certain societies have you know warrior queens just as much
Yeah.
as anything. So um, you know, the Vikings among them, where
Mhm.
women were often as fierce as the men, and partook in battles and plunder. And did they rape? I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe they just, were willing participants in other people's rough sex.
Who
Like, it's not rape if I want it to.
But yeah,
What can we
so
do?
the women need to be strong.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to find a quote that I saw on Facebook yesterday. Let me see if I can find it. In the meantime, it's important that each individual in the relationship is their own person at all times. I mean, it's just uh, you have to be strongly differentiated.
Yeah. And I think that because we spend so much time, because in our society right now, we have adopted a practice of protracted adolescence,
Yes,
um, to where our children are not even differentiated from us
right.
until their early 20s.
Eh,
Like, I mean, at best really 18, if they get out of high school and get out from under mom and dad's thumb and everything. But for the most part, really, it lasts all the way into the early 20s. And, when they have the capability, which is harder now for kids that age, to be able to be self supporting.
True.
And then I think it takes several years beyond that to become your own person. So, whereas,
Well,
you know,
which is one of the great benefits of going to college in another state
oh,
is
yes,
is you
my,
have that.
my mother, yeah, my mom flat out told me when it was time for me to graduate high school, and I said something about maybe going to the college that was, 20 minutes away and staying at home. She said no. No. Part of the point of college is you get out of your parents' house, and they were pretty lenient with me actually by that time. They were tired, and so I got to do a lot of stuff
Yeah.
that my oldest brother didn't get to do. I had co-ed sleepovers at my house,
Wow.
with like a dozen 17-year-old kids. And the only rule was no closed doors. So like they were lenient. And I mean, we had co-ed camping trips where they there were no grown-ups around, and my parents knew that there were a dozen 17-year-old boys and girls up on that mountain, and they had no control. Um, but shit, what was I saying? I got all off on that. Oh, but differentiation. So yeah, but you go off to college or whatever, but even then you probably have to send your grades home. Like your parents want you to do well. They're looking over your shoulder to make sure you're not in trouble.
Really, parents do
It's
that?
uh, things have changed, my dear. Nowadays, parents are calling the colleges. I have friends who are in college administration. Parents are calling the colleges like, just a couple months into the semester to find out what their kids' grades are looking like so that they
Oh,
can be
Jesus.
on top of that shit and make sure that little Johnny off at college isn't partying and not doing his job of making them look good.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, in that way, because parents are so wrapped up in their children's results, there's still not that differentiation. So, I really like, we're going to have to make a
Yeah,
complete
it's true.
change.
It's true. Uh, parents very often get attached to the outcomes of their children.
Oh, yes.
That's not good. I found
No,
the
it's not
quote.
good. Oh, good. What is it?
It's from Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Um, she said, I do not wish women to have power over men, but over themselves,
Yeah.
which
And
to me sounds
I,
like being strongly differentiated, being your own person.
it also sounds like the bedrock of, dare we say the word, because you make fun of it a lot, feminism. That's all it is.
That's a great definition of feminism.
That's the true definition of feminism.
Well, yeah.
It is. It is the
I
true definition of feminism. I realize that you have a lot of, like that
there's a
people make statements in the name of feminism that are about putting men down and about subjugating men in the same way women have been subjugated, and that is not the point at all. That is just somebody wanting vengeance. The
yeah.
point of
Well,
feminism is that women can be what they want to be and that there are not systemic roadblocks put up to keep us from it.
well, yeah, okay. I love that definition.
Yeah.
I couldn't be behind it anymore. I have daughters,
Yeah.
and I love women, and I want them all to be happy and successful.
Yeah.
Um,
And to own their power and to
that's
be
right.
able to own their lives. Yeah. I mean, and I think that despite the political bullshit that we have to deal with in today's society, that a lot of good people do agree with that. That men and women have all the same value and rights to be self-determining. Um, but I think there are a lot more people, men and women, who think that women actually don't have that right or ability. Um, but
Well,
we all
yeah,
don't have
a
that.
lot of women don't think that women have the ability.
Yeah. No, absolutely. A
Uh,
lot of women think that all women should be still subscribing to the old deal and trapping a man to take care of them.
or but they, there's these the concept that women are strong, independent people who can decide for themselves, except when they're at college and having sex.
Ah, well, and it is difficult with the because it's a conversation that needs to be had about what is appropriate behavior between romantic partners or people who want to be romantic partners or even sexual partners. So, like, yeah, I agree because, like, I looked at the Aziz Ansari story. I don't know if you followed that about a woman who wrote a whole thing. And basically, what it came down to is that he was coercive, but she consented. And then
Yeah.
he was coercive, and she consented. And he was coercive, and she consented. And it is frustrating because on the one hand, there's a temptation to say that was not sexual assault. Please take it off the table for the women who are truly being sexually assaulted,
Hmm.
and we need to have that conversation. However, this conversation needs to be had as well. That just because she says yes after you begged and cajoled for 5 minutes doesn't mean she wants to do it.
Then
And
don't
y'all need
say yes.
Well, yeah, absolutely don't say yes, but in the much the same way, there were days when your children they wanted another popsicle. And you knew they had already had two popsicles and they didn't need another popsicle. And they just kept asking. And after a while, after 5, 10 minutes of that shit of, but daddy, 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 I just one more please, one more popsicle, and I won't ask for another popsicle the whole day. And after 5 or 10 minutes of that, it's like, you know what, it's just a fucking popsicle. It's just him sticking his dick in my ass. You know, why say no? It's not really that big a deal. Okay, fine. You can put your dick in my ass. It's not really something I'm into. It's not really something I feel comfortable with this person, that person I just met, but okay, I can get over this in order to win your approval, which again, we're back to you got to feel like you're a whole enough person to say, you know what? I don't need your fucking approval, and no, you may not stick your dick in my ass
Right.
because I don't want to.
But
But that
there's also the aspect of, uh, so we don't believe a woman, or we do believe a woman when she says yes. Which is it?
right. No, it's absolutely true. I think what it comes down to is that both men and women, or, both sides of any sort of sexual agreement need to behave with some fucking integrity, which means that if somebody says no, or even maybe looks a little unsure, that as a caring, compassionate human being with integrity, you say, you look like you're not really 100% on board with this. Let's not. Instead of, oh, they didn't say no. Maybe if I harass a little more, maybe if I ask again, maybe if I just one more time, one more time, one more time, then I'll get the answer I'm looking for that will gratify me. Because
Well,
someone with
it
integrity does not operate under only wanting their own gratification.
very true, and I accept that. I accept
And
that.
so a woman with
That
integrity,
that requires a little bit of situational awareness.
Yes, yes, and self-restraint and a willingness to communicate and to ask the squidgy questions of, are you really okay with this, or are you just saying you're okay because it feels awkward to say no?
Can I
Because
say
I don't want you to say yes,
can I
just
say
so that you know.
something kind of shitty though?
Yeah.
In a
Why stop now?
just from a purely tactical perspective,
Yeah.
backing off could make her actually want to.
No, absolutely, you're right.
Yeah,
You're not wrong, because having that consideration of her feelings, making the offer of, oh, I don't want you to do, yeah, isn't this the line we saw in all the movies? I don't want you to do anything you're not comfortable with. That all of a sudden she's like, wow, I am spectacularly comfortable with your dick in my ass. Yes, please. Like
but it's true. Yeah, it's really true.
it is absolutely true, because even just that little bit of consideration for some of us is enough to make us think, oh, he really does care. When in fact it could just be him saying, if I back off, maybe I'll get what I want in the long run.
Right,
But back to integrity, women have to have the integrity to say, I don't want you to do that.
right.
And to be willing to lose that person's approval, and to see that look, that sad little puppy dog look, and to hear that, oh, I'm going to have blue balls. I mean, how many years have we been responsible for y'all's blue balls?
Well, forever.
How many
Where
years
else
has
do
that
they
been
come
used
from?
as an well, how many years has it been used as an excuse that we're responsible for your
Oh,
pain?
no. Well,
You know?
it's
Tell me
not
honestly, and
it
I won't judge you, but did you ever use that as a reason?
never.
Really?
No.
You are 1 in 6 billion, my friend.
Well, because
Because
I
I
don't
have heard it. I
I
have heard. I'm trying to think of all the sexual partners I have had, and I would say I have heard it from 75% of them.
yeah, but that's I never wanted, grudging consent.
But a lot of people are willing to take it.
I'm
And I
not.
don't want to say
I'm
I don't
not.
want to say men, because I know there are women that are predatory in that way as well. But when we're talking about the majority of relationships we're looking at, it is more so men who are, they just want to put their dick in something,
Right.
and whatever gets, that's their goal, and they are attached to that outcome.
It's really
And
true. But
it's really true.
that's
And
the
if they don't get that outcome, like whatever means necessary to get that outcome, even if it comes at the expense of the woman's feelings of self-worth and her own feelings of capability of standing up for what she wants.
if you want to get some kind of an idea how intense that urge is to put your dick into something, talk to an ER doctor.
Because I've seen dicks in so many terrifying places.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and I have to say, as a woman, there are a great many times when you are, I would say, probably equally as desperate to have something in you.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is a driving force, but for one reason or another, whether it's because of just us not being socialized to demand our needs are met, or because we just don't feel the self-worth to say I really need a dick in me. Like, it's just not something that women, I think, are as apt to do, to try to coerce someone into having sex with them. Maybe it's also just because it's not as hard to coerce
Well,
a man into
there,
having sex with us.
there's
Put on
that.
something shiny and shake your ass.
Yep.
So yeah,
Well,
it doesn't usually take much
you
effort.
but here's the thing though, you know, you remember the movie Tootsie?
Oh, I loved it. Yes.
So, Jessica um,
Yeah.
Lang, right?
Thank you. Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and Dustin Hoffman's in his drag outfit, and they're having a sitting on the sofa having girl talk,
Mhm.
and she goes, well, I'm so tired of the games and all of this bullshit,
What I
and
really want
what
is
I
a
really
man to just
wanted,
walk up to me and say, Yeah,
I want you're beautiful. I want to make love to you. And so cut to,
the party where he
the
does
part
it as
yeah,
himself.
yeah, and he gets a drink in his face for saying
Yeah,
exactly what she said she wanted to
yeah.
hear. And every guy goes, "Yep."
You know what the truth is? You
Yeah.
know what the deep, dark truth is that women
Yeah.
wouldn't want to admit about that?
I do know what it is.
Dustin Dustin Hoffman isn't attractive enough to pull that off.
Yeah. They say the words sound like they want to hear it from anybody, but the truth is
No,
they don't.
no. They
They
have
don't.
their ideal in mind. They want
Yes.
their ideal to say it.
Yes, but
Yeah.
that never actually comes out of their mouths. Um, and you know where you see this a lot in uh, teenagers and young women who don't realize that that their sexuality projects like radar and not like laser beams. And
Right? That anybody could be watching them. Yes.
right,
Yes.
and they see some guy that they're not interested in looking at them, and like, what are you looking at? Not you.
Yeah. It's true. It is. Well, the men do the same thing. I mean, maybe not. Maybe their standards are lower. Maybe they don't exclude as many women, but men do the same thing. There are men out there who are. I remember the attractive boys in high school,
Hmm.
and the ones who knew that they were the shit, and that every girl in the school had a crush on them, and they had a certain circle beyond which, if you were looking at them, it was don't even try it. Don't even think that you could aspire to this.
Mm,
So I think
probably.
men do that as well.
Well,
Yeah.
you touch on an interesting aspect of uh, the um, not the drives, this not the sexual drives, but the um, governors on those drives are different, very different for men and women. And
Okay. Explain.
women, well, let's start with men. Men are predisposed to say yes to sex.
Sure. Yeah.
Women are predisposed to say no.
It is
And
true. Biologically,
well,
we've been tested.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and there's a lot of great reasons, and it's very important that women overall have that.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Um, but it's one of the things that causes a lot of friction
Right. It's
and
an
misunderstanding.
iniquity. Yeah. Absolutely. Because y'all are biologically driven to be promiscuous to some degree.
Yeah,
Biologically only.
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
going to try to get any men angry about, that saying that they aren't capable of monogamy.
We're
Certainly
talk
they
we're
are.
talking about the limbic system level stuff.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Our reptile brains,
Yep.
whereas females are programmed to be discerning.
Because
And
every sexual choice for a female could affect the rest of their life.
right. Yeah, absolutely. And whether that means, from the biological perspective of just if I mate with that lesser male, then a greater male does not have a chance because I'm already pregnant.
Right.
All the way up to the emotional. But yeah. So how did we get on that topic?
I don't know.
How did we end up here? I just
We
remember
never
going to
know.
that ER and putting your penis in something. Well, but what we were after before we spun off was the fact that our relationships are temporary, and that because they are, like, why can't we? It spun off from that into how do we become whole people before we enter into these relationships? Like, what is going to have to happen? I think it's too late for us. I think.
Speak for yourself.
Well, I'm just saying. I think it's up to the next generation.
Oh, you're talking
You
a
know,
larger us.
Yes, yes, a larger us. Yeah, no, it's not too late for us. I hope to have a great deal, many more relationships. Although even that is something. So okay, so moving forward from this point in my life, I'm 41, and I have said that I would like. I know, isn't it cute? I have said that I would like to have another romantic partnership. However, I have accepted that at this point, I'm probably not going to find it right off, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to go through a number of temporary relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point,
Those.
probably because I
So
don't know who they are and I don't give a shit, I'm very comfortable with the idea of them being temporary. But that will probably change when I enter into one.
my dear friend Peggy,
Uh huh.
who was my girlfriend in high school for a time, and we're really good friends. She has a
Yeah.
great term for these temporary relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, it cracked me up. She's hilarious. She calls them
Okay.
fillers.
Well, yeah,
It's
I mean, I guess in
perfect.
a
It's
way.
well, right. They're the people who are filling up our lives, and they're not going to be around forever, but they can be around for a time, and you can enjoy each other until the ideal shows up.
Well, and okay, so I have a little bit different take on that. That's what I think that that would have been appropriate to me in young adulthood. Had I dated, because I really didn't. I met my husband when I was 18,
Hmm.
and that was it. Um, so, but had I dated more and had like serial monogamy,
Oh,
I
oh,
would have I
ho,
would have
ho,
called
ho,
them fillers. Okay.
uh, I just wanted to make a attachment to outcomes comment about high school dating when you're.
Okay.
Wait, so remind me about that.
Oh, okay. All right. But that at this point, I do because I don't feel 100% assured that I'm going to have another 20-year relationship.
Hmm.
Even though I have time for it, I just I don't necessarily know that that's something that is going to happen for me again. And that's okay. So I guess in that way, I'm not looking at any of these people as being fillers. I'm just looking at them as being people whose company I enjoy and who I love until we don't love each other anymore, and that would really be what took place.
Yeah.
That they would just begin and end organically.
Well, that's
Um,
my point
but
is
they're still fillers in
yeah,
the sense that I'm filling time until I die,
or until
until I get to that ideal.
you know, or and if and when you find your ideal.
Yes, I mean,
But it's
but I guess that would just be because one of those fillers turned out to be, oh,
yeah,
holy shit, you're him. Haha,
yeah.
how cool.
But I mean,
Please stay,
it's
please
not
stay.
like
Don't leave.
it's not like you go into something going, you know what, I think we're gonna go about 6 months, and that should cover it for you and me.
I've done that before.
Have you? No.
I've
Really?
always been a very, I've always been a very pragmatic sort of person.
I'm gonna pencil
And
you in for August.
and in high school though, and this will I'll let you say your thing, but that's exactly how I felt. In high school, I was very aware that none of these people were going to last. None of because I did date in high school, but it was that none of this was going to go anywhere. We were all far too immature, and I didn't really think any of them were that spectacular anyway. So yeah, I actually went into a few relationships with, all right, well, this will run for a few dates until you figure out I'm way smarter than you, or until until you want to have sex and I don't, or until I get clingy and you decide that's enough of that. And like it was always, I had no illusions that anything in high school was ever going to last beyond that.
Hmm.
So what's your thing?
Well, my thing was I was reflecting back about uh, dating in high school and attachment to outcomes,
Hmm.
and how picky I was about who I asked on dates, because I only wanted to ask girls out that I wanted to have as a girlfriend.
Right. Okay.
And so,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I remember, uh, one of the consequences of that is that there's a huge amount of anxiety because there's this big risk involved of, will she like me and want to go out more and be my girlfriend or not?
Because you had already created the scenario in your head of wanting to be her boyfriend,
Yeah,
not just wanting to information gather and get to know each
no,
other, but you already knew you wanted to be this person's boyfriend. You wanted her to be your girlfriend.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, why ask her out? That was my
Right.
thinking at the time.
Yeah. That's well, you get a lot of that though, and I remember, oh my gosh, okay, I have not thought of Eric in forever. Eric was one of my high school crush that actually, could have gone somewhere if we had because there was a crush I had that it was like, so out of my league, but you're good eye candy. But I mean, he was sweet and wonderful, but it just, yeah, no, he's way too pretty. But Eric was somebody that, he was funny and he had a crush on me, but I didn't have a crush on him, and then it flipped, but it came down to at some point, he was such a good quote Christian boy. He would not, like, as we got to be good friends and he really got to know me, then he couldn't date me because I was not marriage material. Yeah. That as much as I tried to be a good girl, like all that effort, like I wasn't a good enough girl for him, which is its own thing, that
Right?
like I would have had to try harder and fake it more. Um, but and I was willing to actually to some degree. But that he was willing to um like fool around with me, but it was never going to go beyond that. And there was another girl he had in mind. And he specifically said, like, you and I are never going to go anywhere because she is the kind of woman I should be dating. She's a good Christian girl, and that's marriage
Jesus.
material. Yeah. Yeah. But it doesn't, like, I don't have any ill will
That's
towards him because it was just such a, I really and truly at that point remember feeling like, oh my God, you poor guy. Like, like this is, you're looking for boring. You're looking for boring and who's going to make you her focus and look good, and there will be no passion and like,
oh, yeah.
not that he and I were doing anything that radical. I mean, we're just making out, but it was, in that can't get enough of you way. And it was like, okay, all right, that no, I am not marriage material. You are correct, sir. And I was a filler. I was totally in that way. I was a filler for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, but at the same time, like he did. There was this thing of the don't become boyfriend girlfriend with anyone that you are not willing to become husband wife with. So even a little more drastic
Well,
things. Don't ask out anybody that you don't want to go out, be a girlfriend with.
I remember my parents being, you know, uh, putting those kinds of thoughts in. The phrasing I recall from my parents and from church was, you marry who you date.
Right.
So be careful who you date.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I mean, and there's some truth to that.
But it also takes it out of our children's hands of finding out who the hell they are and who they want to marry.
Oh,
If
that's
we've
that's
told them.
they don't get to decide
No, no,
that.
exactly. That's the thing. They don't get it. You marry who I think is right for you, even though,
Right.
I've only ever treated you as an extension of me and therefore have no idea who would be right for
Mhm.
you. Yeah.
It's you will marry who looks right, who checks off
Yeah.
the boxes. Um,
Yeah. The superficial boxes that I've
yes,
decided are important.
yes.
Mm. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that anybody listening to this, most of the people listening to this probably have kids, and I would just like to say on behalf of your children, please back the fuck up. It applies to almost all of us. Back
Yeah,
the fuck up.
yeah,
We are so, like, we think the world is so much more dangerous than it is,
yeah.
and we are failing to protect our children in the very real ways they need to be protected internally by having a strong sense of self and a soft landing place. Like those are the things that kids need when you really look at what makes a successful adult, somebody who can weather the storms, not successful in monetary ways or having a marriage that lasts 30 years, but in that they feel good about themselves. What kids need growing up is to figure out who the hell they are and to have a bunch of adults around them who say, hey, while you're figuring that out, and by the way, fucking it up a shit ton, I'm going to be right here just giving you a soft place to land and letting you know, yep, you fucked it up again. Love you anyway. Get out there and do it again.
Yeah. And I agree so very much with all of that. Um, and the idea, if you are in any way using your kids to fill holes in yourself, you're fucked up.
Hmm.
You need to get help. I mean, that's in the most kind and gentle and serious way.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like you
the,
seriously need to
you,
work on yourself.
your role as a parent is not to take from your children, it is to
No.
give to your children and fill them up
Yes.
because they don't know how to do it yet,
And that even beyond that, if that's what you're doing, trying to fill your holes with your children, you're not going to be any happier when they leave
right?
than you would be if you were doing it with a romantic partner. It's not
Sure.
going to
Nope,
work.
nope.
But I,
And the therapy bills for your kids will go on for years.
yeah, so you might as well just pay them directly and get your own therapy.
Yeah.
But so I knew back to high school dating, this was actually a way that I did treat it as information gathering. There was a guy, I think his name was Anthony, who really wanted to date me, like really did. And he would call and we would talk a lot. And I wasn't super attracted to him, but he was nice and we had good talks and everything. And so, but I remember very distinctly the time when I realized, oh no, 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 no. I am not going to be involved in a relationship with you was when we were talking about, did we want to have kids? And he said, yes, and my kid is going to be a basketball star.
Oh,
Right? And I was like, how do you know that? That is
right.
incredible that you know. And he's like, well, that's what they're going to do. Like, I'm going to put them into sports early and they're going to do it. And like, they're going to have the opportunities I never had. And that, like, anytime I hear somebody say that particular phrase, which sounds so generous and loving, it's not.
No,
Wanting them to have the opportunities you never had translates to, I'm going to make them do what I couldn't.
right.
And that is not their job.
No,
So
no, totally not. Yeah.
yeah, and at that, I mean, like I pinned him. Was at the time a very non-confrontational person, but I pinned him and I was like, really? Even if he didn't want to, he's like, yeah. Even if your child hated basketball, yeah, you would make them do it, yeah. Like, well, okay, that's thank you for letting me know that. I'm done. Because
Oh
and
God,
in a way it
he
was.
probably had cats.
I don't rightly know. That would seem kind of, non the
That's wild.
counterintuitive though, because you can't make cats do what you want them to do. You really should have a dog.
Except stay inside.
Yeah. But only when they want to. Goodness.
Well,
All right.
the concept there is that cats are have been forced into domestication against their
Yeah.
will.
Right. Whereas dogs are perfectly happy to have
Yeah, it was a
it.
symbiotic relationship from the start.
Yes. Yes, it's true. Well, because dogs are pack animals and cats are not. Not generally, not all of
Right.
them. Well, and now we've worked our way around to the animal kingdom. I think we have done a good chunk of world saving today. Feels
But
good.
will people listen? Come on.
No. Oh,
No.
goodness. Don't be ridiculous. And even if they listened, would they do it? No. It's no fun. It's hard work.
It's
Leads
change.
to us talking all of this shit for hours and being up in our heads all the time.
I did want
Don't
to
do it.
I did want to mention a little bit about change, making changes,
Oh,
and
okay.
why is it so fucking hard to do and scary?
Okay. Tell me.
Well, I would say that at the very base level, it's a it's a um, it's a fear of death. Now, let me explain that.
Oh, yes, please. That was a big leap.
Yeah. So, got your attention.
Yes.
All right. So, what happens is we as people have a great need to belong to our tribe and to be accepted and understood.
Yes.
And
And
uh, if we make if we make changes, we make sometimes even slight changes.
mhm.
We stop being understood by people who used to understand
Yeah.
us, and
We risk
sometimes we stop
ostracism.
and sometimes we stop being accepted by those people. And in a anthropological sense, that kind of rejection used to lead to death.
Yes. Yes. It's one of, is it Eric Erickson that did all the conflicts throughout your life, and the one that falls right around adolescence, right around the time when we're becoming biologically capable of reproducing, is belonging versus isolation, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And it
Yep.
is because it is a matter of survival, not only of our own, but of the species.
Right.
I think you're onto something.
And so, we have this very ancient fear that if we make changes, we will be kicked out of the tribe into the snow
Mhm.
and not be able to survive.
Yeah, well, and you're not wrong, and especially in these days when vulnerability and deep connection are at such a premium anyway,
Mm-hmm.
it is hard to want to risk that. I mean, not the only, but one of the few solaces I have about my marriage falling apart is that I wasn't really losing somebody who knew me deeply, and wanted to be vulnerable in that way with me. But had I had, as opposed to the gentleman who died,
Right.
which was a situation of very much losing somebody, one of the few people, the handful of people in the world who I feel really do see me and understand me, and losing that was so incredibly painful. I can't imagine how much more painful it would be if that kind of permanent loss had happened as a result of me speaking my truth as a person. That's like people who get excommunicated from their church,
Right.
who literally are not, supposed to or allowed to see their family,
Right.
because their family is supposed to shun them.
Yeah.
So yeah, in cases like that, absolutely, to speak one's truth can threaten your survival, um, in ways that feel absolutely, yeah, life or death. Because
Yeah.
if you don't have everything, your whole safety net anymore, what the hell do you have? How are you going to survive?
And you also find the people in your tribe trying to pull you back in.
Mhm.
Don't go there. Don't do that. It scares them too, makes them uncomfortable. Um,
It's interesting to think, what would it be like? What would a tribe? What would it look like to have a planet where all the tribes are made up of whole people?
how
Like,
about one?
because I well, I mean, but it's interesting to think, like, if we predicate this on the idea that those sorts of communities where leaving them is a threat to your survival, where leaving your tribe
Hmm.
is a threat to survival, is that only because those tribes are made up and invested in the idea that none of them are whole people?
They, I think, I think that's very true. And we have entire cultures whose rigidity insists upon people not being individuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's predicated on subsuming the entire culture, everyone must subsume their individuality
Mhm.
to uh, to their society.
And it's interesting how we thought that was the way to get accountability between each other. That that was the way to move forward, was that if we all are, we reduce the individual, we support the collective, and in that way the entire collective is able to survive. Is that because of just the society we've come to and the technology and the interconnectedness? Is it really time to make that transition to no, everybody needs to be a whole person,
Hmm.
because the damage that the tribes are doing to each other
Yeah,
is is so destructive that really, like, we're gonna end up with no people, if because everybody's our whole, when your identity is tied up in your tribe, because you're not whole, a
yeah,
threat to your tribe is a threat to your identity.
yeah,
So it seems like the tribes have gotten to a point where they're no longer a benefit. At least tribes predicated on lack of wholeness. And
yeah. I totally think they're completely outdated, um, and very harmful. I mean, you can see this all around the globe, really.
it's interesting, though, to think that, I think of some tribes as being harmful, but that's usually the ones that are in power. The tribes of people who are on the outskirts, where it's tribes of the disenfranchised binding together, those are still about survival. And so I think those are still useful. But the ones that have become about perpetuating power rather than survival in the most base terms. I'm comparing. I don't want to get too political, but I'm comparing the difference between, say, a the whether we're talking about LGBTQ or even just down to like transgender. Like,
Oh,
that is
see,
a tribe that
I
still
was
needs.
thinking like feudal Japan.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, that works too.
right,
But even if we said, so let's take it down to, like, people who are poor, or the people that were on the bottom of that feudal system who didn't have a voice, like, those people still need to band together for survival.
right.
But the people who are only interested, who are at the top and who are only interested in preserving their power, those tribes are destructive now.
Yes, I think. Well, um, to use a biological metaphor, um, one of the concepts they used to teach in junior high biology
Hmm.
was, and I don't think they even teach it at all now,
Hmm.
is that uh, unless controlled, every organism will alter its environment until it becomes toxic to itself. Meaning, it will, consume all of the resources. It will have too many offspring. It
Yeah,
will
like
pollute.
viruses.
It will pollute the area, and so
Hmm.
typically you have some other organism that will come along and keep that one organism in check,
Right.
and then another organism. But left to their own devices,
Yeah.
without
Or introduce an invasive species into an
right,
environment that doesn't have a control.
right, and I think that's what
Yeah.
happens to organizations as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. But without the all that whole hierarchy, the from the
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
biggest
mean,
species down to the little ones. Yeah.
so you know, this is how you have a tribe of outcasts who band together for initially for survival, and pretty soon they're taking over,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
they're imposing their strictures and things, and they become the ones who are deciding how individuals should behave and
And
be.
that's interesting, because as long as we are operating from a place of lack, I think you're right. I think that's what's going to happen. And I think that even the fact that that is what is going to happen is what freaks everybody the fuck out so much right now. That, oh my God, the gays are going to take over, because in, historically speaking, whoever it was, I mean, Christians used to be a minority.
Yeah.
Christians used to be persecuted, fed to the lions,
Right.
right? But now in our Western society, and particularly in the U.S., Christianity and people of that religious persuasion hold the majority of the power. However, there is among some factions a great fear that the liberals, the gays, the feminists, so, the whatever
Mhm.
they aren't,
Yeah.
is going to come along and take over in the same way they did. And I guess when I look at it that way, because I've always looked at that and been like, oh my God, get over it. And how would it be so bad if they did anyway? But I guess in a way it's like, well, no, I guess that's kind of a justifiable fear because it is exactly what
That's how
they
it goes.
did.
That's
Yeah.
how the cycle goes.
Right. So it is sort of a sense of, okay, no, everybody fucking disband the tribes quick before we blow the planet up. And let's all just get whole within ourselves and stop, relying on everybody else to fill our holes and fill our needs and make things the way we want them to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty messed up world.
Saving the world is exhausting.
I'm glad we only have to do it once a week.
Well, I think really we took 2 weeks off, didn't we?
But still, I'm just saying.
Government shut down.
I'm just saying I wouldn't want it as a full-time job.
Right? Yeah. Nah. Really, living in the imaginary world of
Yeah.
erotic paranormal fiction is so much more fun, or at least easier.
Yeah, and all of that doesn't even account for the sociopaths.
Oh, good God.
That's a whole nother story.
It really is.
I'm not getting into that.
I was going to say, yeah, because more often than not, they're the one leading the bad tribes.
Well,
The
no,
scary little tribes.
they end up leading all the tribes.
Oh, that's true. Oh, man. Yeah, okay, we're not going there.
No,
Okay,
I got it on
good
the list
game.
though.
Yes, put them on the list.
On the
We
list.
will deal with them later. All right. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, and
And
I
you
will.
too.
Yes, yes. I'll see you next time we save the world, honey.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.